Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another video about the upcoming Arctic blast that's coming into the United States. Also, we got a little bit of a low pressure system over here with a potential sneaky severe weather and tornado threat. You can actually see it's already getting going. Our low pressure system is back here. Not the highest amounts of moisture coming into this, but the air above the surface is just cold enough to allow for some lift to get some thunderstorms going and maybe a little bit of a tornado threat as this pushes off to the east. After this system moves out, brings a little bit more snow to the northeast, we're going to be talking about yet another storm that's not even in the United States yet. In fact, little piece of energy that we're all excited about and want to know more about is actually all the way over here, just off of the coast of Japan. So you can see a little while before it comes into the United States. First, we're going to be looking at the general pattern that is setting up this potential major snowstorm. And I really do believe that the question isn't whether or not we're going to get some major impacts out of this next snowstorm, but where. And some of the important things in determining where that's going to be is going to be understanding the water pattern out there. As you can see, as I move this forward, we're definitely going to see that low pressure system. You see that just kind of start to form, is over there, back over to Japan. Now it's moving over into the Pacific. And then we get this high pressure system over here and another high pressure system over here, funneling that cold air into Canada, but not quite into the United States yet. And as I push this forward, you can see that low pressure system dives across into the west coast as we go into the fourth, and then eventually pushes into the southeast. Now, the big question mark here. So whether this is going to be more to the south, like the GFS is saying, or if it's going to be a little bit more to the north, like the Euro is saying. So we're setting up here for two scenarios that we have to watch out with this storm, because they're going to be important in determining how much snowfall we're going to get out of this thing. Another sneaky reason why there's going to be so much cold air is not just because we're getting the help from those high pressure systems, but because look at this, almost the entire country of Canada is covered in a foot of snow, almost making quite the argument, if you are a snow lover, to maybe move up to Canada. I mean, just look at that. You would get snow almost every day and just always have snow around, although too much of a good thing might get a little bit annoying. I know me personally, as someone from the South, I would absolutely hate it up there. I like snow every now and then, but to be buried in it forever, I don't think so. Yeah, so here is our area we're going to be watching here. And as you can see, it pushes across the Pacific Ocean, moves all the way into the West Coast, and then eventually digs down into the United States. Now, another thing that we're going to be watching for before we get into the snow, I do want to briefly go over this. Don't have a whole lot of details just yet. But if we look over at our instability, aka our storm food, as this thing starts to eject into the United States, you see that we're watching out for the potential for this little area of instability to come up further to the north. Now, the Euro has this going all the way up into parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, setting up for quite the severe weather event. The GFS has a little bit more of a mediated event happening here. So still a lot of disagreement, but if we get that Euro solution, definitely have to watch out for another severe weather outbreak and potentially a tornado outbreak in this area as we move into the 5th. I do want to touch on this just before we get to the snow really quick, because this is a little bit more in view as a threat. As you can already see, we are starting to see some special weather statements, and we've actually had a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings already with this guy. So this is a little bit of a cold core event, not your typical severe weather event. Essentially, all that means is that we don't really have a whole lot of higher dew points up there, but because of the cold air that's way above the surface, going to allow enough lift to happen for some thunderstorms, potentially tornadoes to form. They're very rare events, actually, especially this far north during December. Looking at our spin in the atmosphere, you can definitely see that there is a little bit there in the lower levels, working with the upper levels as well to create a decent area where tornadoes can happen. It's a low chance, but I wouldn't rule out a couple of weaker spin-ups. Typically, cold core events don't produce strong tornadoes, so we're not really too concerned about that. But as we move throughout the day, going into the evening, we're definitely going to see a little bit more widespread coverage here of some severe weather, maybe even a small chance for tornadoes all the way from Roanoke, Harrisburg up into Morgantown as well. And then as we go into 5 p.m., that threat spreads off to Romney, Washington, Baltimore, and Richmond. And then as we go into 7 p.m., 8 p.m., that's when it really starts to die down. But there still could be a couple lingering thunderstorms out here that have the potential for severe weather. Then after 8 p.m., this is pretty much out of our hair. Continuing back where we left off, as that little bit of energy travels all the way from the Pacific all the way into the United States. You can see that as we go into the fourth, we're going to start to see some more chances for some snow over here north of Oklahoma. That's where it's destined to start off, but it could start off a little bit further to the south. Still some big iffies and question marks on where this thing is really going to start off here. Because again, if we get a little bit more of a southern track, which is what we're going to see here from the GFS, this kind of moves off to the east and pushes up into that cooler air a little bit further to the south. I mean, look at this. On the 5th, we could potentially have widespread snow all the way Colorado, New Mexico, going all the way down into Memphis, northern Arkansas, and even northern Alabama. Lots of freezing rain here as well that could also cause some problems in terms of icing and dangerous travel conditions and even some power outages. As I push this forward in time, as we go into the 5th, most of that snow in the southeast transitions into freezing rain, really locking that snow in underneath a frozen layer. Look at this, all the snow for Tennessee going up into Kentucky, southern Illinois, going into Missouri, also parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. Eventually that pushes off to the east, continuing into areas that really haven't seen snow in quite a while. Parts of North Carolina and most of Virginia could get a decent snowfall amount out of this storm. And then as we go into the 6th at around 3 and 6 p.m., this kind of moves out of our hair and out over the Atlantic Ocean. Given how far out we are, really don't want people to pay too much attention to how much snow is falling and in what area here, because again, this could shift. We could still get a little bit more of a southern shift here, bringing this even further to the south. And we also have the Euro solution that we're about to go over that shows the heaviest band further to the north. But I do want to show you generally where the snow falls in this model run, which is right here in this strip. So again, potential for some southeast snow is certainly possible, but as you're just about to see, it's not guaranteed. All right, looking at the Euro solution here as we go into time, you can see that it really starts to pick up snow a little bit further up to the north, really for areas like Kansas, northern Oklahoma, going into Missouri, parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and southern Ohio. Eventually, that kind of just stays on that line, but it kind of does bring it up a little bit further north, almost the entire Ohio Valley, Illinois, going up into West Virginia and southern Pennsylvania get the most amount of snow out of this. And then eventually, it kind of pushes off to the east and then eventually out of the country. So you can definitely tell a lot more of a northern solution here. So we still have some model disagreement. We're definitely not ready to lock in a definite forecast just yet, but now you're starting to see the different scenarios that we can get out of the storm as it comes throughout the country. Here's our estimated snowfall totals from the Euro. Again, I don't want you guys to pay attention too much to the numbers themselves, but more of where the area is, where the snow is falling. You can see it's a lot further north, out of Tennessee, out of the southeast, out of even Arkansas, all the way up into the Ohio Valley, the Ozarks, and part of the Central Plains. So big differences here between these models, but either way, a lot of folks that haven't really seen a lot of snow are probably going to get it, because I really don't think we're going to see too big of changes in terms of the amount of snow we're going to get out of this, because it does seem like that Pacific moisture is going to be enough mixed with that Gulf of Mexico moisture to really bring in enough moisture into this cooler air that's pretty much guaranteed at this point and mix together and cause a decent amount of snow. Now, speaking of colder air, you might not believe me right now if you live anywhere in the eastern United States, given just how warm it is. I mean, we're about 20 degrees above average here in the southeast, going up into the Ohio Valley. And that's eventually going to move out of the country. Those high pressure systems are going to work together. And then look at this. Start seeing that colder than average air pick up over here in Canada. And then once we get that low pressure system kind of move in, it's going to bring in, the first one actually is going to bring in a little shot of cold, setting the stage for some snow. And then eventually you see that we get those warmer than average temperatures return back here. That's the potential for that severe weather building there as that low pressure comes through. And then it really brings in some pretty cold air on the backside. And this is just our first shot of cold air. This isn't even the biggest shot that we're going to be expecting in the future. But still, I mean, we could be 27 degrees below average here when this storm sets up. Now, again, this is the GFS. This is going to be a little bit further south, and the Euro is going to be a little bit further to the north. But still, it seems like there's going to be plenty of cooler air for the snow to happen. And also, get ready, because it's about to cool down quite significantly here in the southeast, going up into the Ozarks. And then eventually, as I push this out in the future, another thing that we are watching out for is the potential for a little bit bigger of an Arctic blast here. And as you can see, we could have negative 30 degree below average all the way up there in the northern plains, going down into the central plains. And eventually that could work its way into the southeast, where we could see some negative degree temperatures. But take a note up here. We're at January 12th. This is really far out. This is all the way in the next year, even though that's not really far away. But you get what I'm saying. The further you go out in the models, this is the way that it goes. Everybody knows this, the more wrong they are. So definitely don't take this with too much thought. Let's go look at those temperatures and see what we're actually talking about. All right, this is the temperatures here with the wind chill. And yeah, You can see those airs trapped up there in Canada, and eventually they're going to work their way down into the United States after we get that warm up in the south. That system comes through, and that really starts to open the door here for some colder than average temperatures. Moving into the 6th and 7th, when the storm is going to be starting, we could already be seeing some negative degree temperatures all the way down here in parts of Missouri, Arkansas, moving into Oklahoma and Kansas. This is the coldest temperatures you've at least felt this year. Potentially, maybe a little bit colder than you felt last year. You see negative 30 degree temperatures all the way up here. This is kind of typical for this time of year. Every now and then we get those Arctic blasts, those polar vortexes come through. This one's going to be pretty decent. It really seems to be trapped along this little axis here. It doesn't really spread too much into the Ohio Valley, but although we are still seeing, geez Louise, we are still seeing some teens across the Ohio Valley. Then eventually, as I push this forward, you can see really starts to cool down. And then that biggest surge of cooler air that we're keeping our eye on to see if it's going to be possible, that could bring negative temperatures all the way down into the southeast around the 12th. But again, these models' biases really start to get more and more pronounced as we go well out into the future. So still huge question marks on whether or not this is going to happen here. But generally, it does seem like confidence is building that January is going to be a cold one. But all right, everybody, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in for this little winter storm update. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy this video. It does help us grow as a channel and reach more people in the future, especially when we do our live coverage. And yeah, I'll be watching this event here. If we get some widespread tornadic activity, it looks dangerous, I might go live later on today, but it's a low chance. I haven't really been able to celebrate Christmas just yet, so I'll probably be hanging out with the family today. So stay safe out there. Get a way to get alerts. I'll see you guys on the next one.